Welcome to blazing hot Buriram, where we've seen a scorching start to the new season. So much to get through for myself, Lewis Sotheby and Jack Appleyard on our first after the flag of the 2026 season, on a day where Pedro Acosta has retained the World Championship lead, where last year's world champion and runner-up scored nothing, and Marco Bezzecchi won by a distance. Aprilia locking out 4 of the top 5 places today. Ducati's 88 podium streak in MotoGP ended. And for Marco Bezzecchi today, what kind of statement have he and Aprilia made this weekend?
Yeah, a huge, huge statement. I have to say, though, Massimo Rivola mentioned it in Parc Fermé when I interviewed him. There is still a feeling that they've left something on the table this weekend. I know that his performance today was perfect. It was lights to the flag. He could have won by 10 seconds if he wanted to. Such was his advantage. But that mistake yesterday and leaving 12 points in the gravel trap still stings Aprilia, because they know that Marc Marquez wasn't at his best today. He could potentially have challenged Raul Fernandez for that final podium spot if it wasn't for what we realised was a mistake on his part to run wide, and unfortunately as he went over the curb it seems as though that has bent the wheel rim, and that has caused that quite catastrophic puncture and tyre failure. In the end, it wasn't a tyre issue, despite other riders suffering some big issues in some of the most challenging conditions that we'll not only have this year but we'll have for many a year. It's a big statement from Marco Bezzecchi, but we have to put into context the fact that there is the harder carcass rear tyre here, which Aprilia are very, very good at. So I think the balance of power may shift slightly back in Ducati's favour when we get to Brazil, but still a big, big statement, and above everything else it shows they are here to fight this year.
The World Championship will be led to Brazil by Pedro Acosta after a double podium for him on the Fancy KTM. Yesterday's sprint winner and second today. He's speaking live now to Matt Burt.
Yeah, the MotoGP World Championship leader, the first KTM rider ever to do that in history, is Pedro Acosta. Pedro, huge congratulations. What a start to 2026 for you. The winner of a classic sprint yesterday. Second in today's Grand Prix. A real tough battle here in Buriram. Your crew chief, Paul Travathan, told us yesterday it's time for the monster to wake up. I think the monster did wake up this weekend, didn't he?
Not bad at all. Normally the monster was making much more mistake in the past, you know. At the end, I don't know, we was working super fine all the winter. He was pushing me a lot in video calls whole winter to be calm and to don't think so much, because maybe the expectation last year was quite high and was not helping. Also, I don't know, things that are happening live make you be more conscious of how life is going, and I don't know. I wanted to start the year in the same way that I finished the last one, trying to fight for this top 5. Even today, after the warm-up that was not great, we say, okay, boys, maybe it's not the race that we dream with, but we have to finish in this top 5. That is our target, you know. We are making good races, not a lot of mistake compared last year for this. It's time to keep in this line.
13 laps yesterday was hard work. Today was 26 laps. Hottest conditions of the weekend. Some brilliant battles out there once again, Pedro, like you had in the sprint yesterday. Real good fight with Mark and then with Jorge Martin. Talk us through that and just how tough it was.
I mean, super great battle with Mark yesterday and super great battle today with Jorge, you know. I really enjoy this kind of races, even if we was losing time, but I was enjoying a lot. Again, super clean battles with Jorge, like I say. It's true that then I was taking a bit more pace, I was catching a bit Raul, and arrived one moment I say, okay, let's try to manage a bit more the fuel and these things, and then try to make this extra push. One moment I say, okay, 7 laps to go, it's now or never for this. I don't know, we are working quite okay in the box, maintaining the calm for this. This is making things much easier.
It's a long, long season. It's only the first round of the championship, but coming into 2026, everybody was saying, well, this is going to be another battle between Ducati, another battle with Aprilia, but here you are after the first round, leading the World Championship, winning the sprint, second in the Grand Prix. Do you feel, moving forward into the season, that you can maintain this level of performance and maybe fight for the championship?
You never know. At the end, we have to maintain calm, making the job that we are doing, knowing what is our position, and don't expect more than what we can do, you know, for this. Let's try to maintain calm, like you say, championship leader for more than one day. For this is cool.
Championship leader for more than one day. It was great to see the Shark attacking again here this weekend. Fantastic job. Well done,
Thank
Pedro.
you, buddy.
Pedro Acosta then leads the MotoGP World Championship by 7 points at the end of this weekend from Marco Bezzecchi. The battle between himself, Jorge Martin and Marc Marquez, some of the best racing. Whatever happens in the next 42 races we have, some of the best racing we'll see this season.
Exceptional. Just before the interview with Pedro, I said to him, wow, you've put on a show this weekend. Yesterday was unbelievable. Arguably one of the best sprints we've ever had. So many talking points to come out of it, but they weren't done there. That sort of complex of turn 3, turn 4, where Mark swooped through and managed to get both of them, was true MotoGP at its very best. We call it the most exciting sport on earth, and that is because it's true. You don't believe us? Go back and watch that. What other sports can provide stuff like that? It was fantastic, and fair play to Pedro. That is a huge weekend to start the year, and it just shows the growth of him in 12 months.
Yeah, I was going to come on to that, because KTM, I still think you could say, well, at best they had the second fastest bike, potentially the third, behind Aprilia and Ducati this weekend, and yet Pedro Acosta has come out of this weekend with, 32 World Championship points and a World Championship lead. He squeezed every last drop and a bit more out of that KTM here.
Yeah, unbelievable performance. It is the third best bike on the grid. There's no getting away from that. The Aprilia, the Ducati is a better motorcycle than KTM. But right now, given the fact that he's leading the World Championship, is there a better motorcycle rider on the grid currently than Pedro Acosta? There's only Marc Marquez that can hold a candle to him, and Marc's days will come. Let's not get carried away. Marc is still, despite now being in a fairly significant deficit to Pedro in the World Championship, only 9 points to come from the weekend for Marc means that he is playing catch-up, but he is still the favourite. Still 21 Grand Prix to go. It's a long old year, so Marc will get his opportunities. And for Pedro, look, if he can stay in World Championship contention for as long as is humanly possible, he has done an exceptional job. He's still only young. His opportunities will come in the future. I still, despite the fact he's leading the World Championship, don't think we can say with real confidence that Pedro is going to take this championship fight right to the very end. But it's a huge day for him, leading the World Championship for the first time. It's a huge day for KTM, that have really turned the project around, having been in a pretty dark place this time last year. So huge credit to him, huge credit as well to Aki Ayo. What a job he's done to steady the ship, to put it in the right direction, to change the working method. We know he's ice cool, and he's brought that methodology and that working method to KTM to put them in a position where they are far more methodical and are thinking about things more clearly. And he's brought that calmness to Pedro Acosta in those rookie year, and then again last year at times as well. He was erratic at times. Certainly the start of the year was making big errors in big moments, but so far he's been perfect, spotless from Pedro Acosta, and huge credit to him. He deserves to lead the World Championship for at least, as he said to us and in Park Firm as well, more than a day. That's nice for him to enjoy.
Yes, he'll lead it for at least 3 weeks before we go racing again in Goiânia in the Brazilian Grand Prix. Return to the calendar. Let's return to Marco Bezzecchi in the winner, because we know we've got 2 more riders to hear from. They're both on board Aprilia's. Of course, it will still sting, as you mentioned, Marco Bezzecchi losing the 12 points that he should have really got by winning the sprint yesterday. But in terms of his victory here today, the key largely for Bezzecchi's victory was converting that start into the lead, which he didn't yesterday. Yeah,
he had to get the start. We've been saying all day, you can just tell, looking at the deserted paddock around us and people taking cover in the shade, just how hot it is. As a result, front tyre temperature was going to skyrocket. You had to get in front. You had to get that clean air, and he did so brilliantly. Aprilia, from a couple of years ago, where their bike was a bit of a pig off the line. I remember vividly in Jerez when Aleix Espargaro and I think Maverick Vinales were both on the front row of the grid, and even at Jerez, when it's a pretty short run to the opening corner, they got swallowed up and had no chance. But they put a lot of effort, a lot of work into making sure that they can get that RSGP off the line much better. Another step has been taken over the winter months, and once he hit the front from turn 1, you knew that this could be game over pretty quickly. I think his advantage was close to half a second, 0.6 of a second after the first lap, then upwards of a second after lap 2, and it was game over from then on. He was managing the race from that point onwards.
Yeah, Ralph Fernandez taking, in the end, a third place. He was the nearest challenger for Marco Bezzecchi in the early stage of the race, but it was just a case of 2/3 every lap. Marco Bezzecchi was able just to continue to eke that advantage out as Ralph Fernandez encountered some problems in the latter stages. We'll be hearing from Marco Bezzecchi very, very shortly, so as soon as he's ready for us to speak. In fact, he is ready now, so we'll head straight over to Matt Burt to hear from our Thai Grand Prix winner, Marco Bezzecchi. Matt.
Yeah, here he is, the winner of the Thai Grand Prix, history-making Marco Bezzecchi, the first Aprilia rider ever to win 3 MotoGP races in a row. Marco, it felt like bounce-back Bez today after the disappointment of crashing out in the sprint, the perfect motivation today. I mean, it's never easy in MotoGP, but today you really did make it look easy. What a recovery from yesterday and a perfect, almost perfect start to the championship, pole position and the Grand Prix victory.
Yeah, after yesterday it was important to try to reset and try to bounce back in the race, of course. I knew my pace was good, and I knew that if I was going to start in a good way, trying to stay a bit more calm, was possible to put a small gap at the beginning, and then yeah, fortunately my strategy was good, and I was able to manage a bit the gap. Of course, it wasn't easy because the tires were the wear of the tire was critical, but yeah, we worked well, so the whole team made a wonderful job, and can't thank them enough.
All weekend you've had amazing pace, you were fastest in every session, pole position, leading the sprint before the small mistake, leading every lap today. How tough is it, how difficult was it to reset after those 3 crashes yesterday? It can't be easy.
Yeah, yesterday was a day where maybe I was just asking too much, because in the morning I was fast, and I made a mistake in turn 3 because I wanted to put the bike in anyway. I felt good with the bike, so I said, okay, I try. But I wasn't maybe thinking enough, and these kind of small mistakes anyway remove to you a bit of confidence. I think that the crash on qualifying was the only one that really, let's say, I understand better, because then when you are pushing for a time attack you are allowed to make these kind of mistakes, let's say. And also the one in the sprint, maybe I got a bit too nervous. I tried to cut too much the corner. Re-looking at the images, I thought I touched the white line, but I think I didn't really touch it. I was super close, but just I tried to carry a lot of corner speed, and this made me crash. So wasn't easy, but fortunately I was good. So
there's been so much talk pre-season, Marco, about your potential, how good you've looked, how good the Aprilia in particular has looked. Pole position for Aprilia, you should have really probably won the sprint yesterday. I mean, you know that yourself. You won the Grand Prix. 4 Aprilias in the top 5 today. It's only the first Grand Prix of the season, but it clearly looks like you have now. You understand that you've got the potential to fight for the World Championship this year. It's a great package. You're riding in great form.
Well, for sure the guys made a wonderful job this winter, but as you said, at the end it's just the first race, so we must stay calm, we must stay focused, keep our head down, and try to work always in the best way possible, because we know that we will struggle at some point. It's normal, everyone does, so let's approach race by race, trying to stay with this mood that is super positive. I can't wait to go to Brazil with the Brazilian vibe. I'm asking to Frankie from last summer about the vibes, the music and everything, so I'm very happy to go there. So,
are we going to see some Marco Bezzecchi samba then in Brazil in a couple of weeks?
Well, I hope. I'm not very good at dancing, but hopefully we can make a good.
Shall we make
weekend.
a bet right here, right now? If you're on the podium again in Brazil, if we're having this conversation in 3 weeks in Brazil, you have to do a bit of samba in the press conference, or maybe some samba on the podium.
I hope. I agree.
You taking the bet?
Yeah, why not?
Cool. Just one final thing, Marco. We have to talk about that last corner this morning in the tuk-tuk race. When you cut across the track, a 1 drop position penalty. Did that give you a bit of motivation for the Grand Prix as well?
Yeah. Well, I said we had a problem with the gearbox, me and Jorge. So when Jorge started, I said to him, okay, let's try to make a good show. You are crazy enough to do it. And he listened to me immediately. So I said to him, okay, let's cut. And then he jumped on the grass, and we jumped a little bit. Then we had a battle with Pecco and Mark. It was super funny. I have to say that this was the best pre-race ever.
tuk-tuk, sambas, and you've won the race here in Thailand. Great as always to talk to you, Marco. Well done, fantastic job.
Thank you very much. Ciao.
The tuk-tuk race this morning was spectacular. Certainly, it probably didn't need to cut any corners today to take Grand Prix victory. Let's discuss Ducati then, who, of course, we're not going to hear from during this show because none of their riders on the podium for the first time since the 2021 British Grand Prix. I don't think Ducati will necessarily be panicking, but surely, to a certain extent, they must be shell-shocked by what they've seen today.
Yeah, not only no riders on the podium, no riders in the top 4, no riders in the top 5. I mean, our statisticians out there...
He was 15 seconds off the winner, the first Ducati home.
Yeah, and you know, there is context to that. Marc Marquez would have been, at the minimum, in the podium fight. He would have finished 4th today if it was behind Raul. The way he was closing Raul and the way Raul was struggling in those final laps, I'm pretty sure he would have picked him up and he would have continued that streak. However, to finish first you've got to finish, and Ducati's riders didn't manage to get inside the top 5 for the first time in God knows how long. It's going to be quite a stretch since we last saw them outside of the top 5. Mark had his own separate issues, which we touched on, a huge shame and such misfortune that going over the curb clearly cracked the wheel rim and caused that puncture to happen. Bagnaya's weekend was over on Saturday morning and he cannot blame the bike. He held his hands up and said, I made too many mistakes in qualifying, and with temperatures like this, you're going to struggle to make too
track
much
position
progress.
king on a day like this.
Exactly. Fabio Di Antonio was arguably the most disappointing performance out of anyone today. He looked so strong all weekend, was bitterly disappointed and frustrated, in his words, to have had his race ruined by Alex Marquez yesterday, but I was expecting him to go forward. The opportunity was there. In the end, Joan Mir would have finished ahead of him. For whatever reason, you just could not find any kind of rhythm. Alex Marquez has not looked comfortable all weekend. The transition from 24 to 26.
No points for Alex this weekend.
No, and yeah, I'm sure without the crash he would have been inside the points, inside the top 8, but that is a stark contrast to the level of performance we saw 12 months ago. The step from 24 to 26, far bigger than what we thought it was going to be throughout pre-season, where he didn't look that bad. He, of course, was the fastest man in Sepang, a circuit that we know he loves. Frankie Morbidelli, the less said, the better. The struggles of the 2025 Ducati apparent now that it's in his hands. It's not a Ducati crisis. Let's not sort of get carried away, because it's round 1 of 22. They were fast at the test, both here and in Sepang. I fully anticipate they will bounce back in some style, firstly at Brazil, and then of course when we go to Kota, where it's going to take something special to stop Marc Marquez. But above everything else, this is a day where it is evident the rules, the concessions that are limiting the amount of testing Ducati are doing with the amount of tyres that they have to go out and test is clearly having an impact. They are nowhere